that ChatGPT is not Google. I mean, you could use it to ask it questions or to, find things on the internet, but at the end of the day, that's not really where the value is in the language models.
And one thing that I'm not really seeing the competition doing is that we also offer a market insights capability. And what that does, Dave, is really interesting. It's not just doing the actual policy comparison, but it actually monitors the selling behavior of the brokers to give them a quantitative analysis on why they're actually placing their business with certain carriers.
Technology is a team member in your agency. You have to look at it as a team member and not an expense. You're going to get a return on the investment that you spend on technology, unlike any other bill that you have. ChatGPT specifically, the large language model things that we're seeing become mainstream are the single greatest and most impactful development in technology since the internet came out itself. I think I can comfortably say that right now.
And I honestly think, David, that if you don't do that and you have that old school mentality, you're not going to survive, because you can't be everything to all people. You really do need to collaborate with others that can help offer a better product to your consumers.
If you have people that are experts and really good at one piece of it, let them do that and then work with other people to build a really cool finished product. And there may be people who are an expert at a very specific piece of what you're building, and that same piece applies to 2 or 3 other projects. If this person has it figured out, why recreate the wheel, man? Figure out a way to work together and build the best product possible, and we all win as a result of that. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. And today we have a great conversation, kind of a little bit of a catch up, maybe a little bit of new information and some recap. But we have Rich from BluePond AI on the podcast today, and he's going to talk about what they do, what they've been doing since they were on about a year ago, and what they kind of see happening in the future. And I got to tell you, I'm super pumped to have him on specifically because they are one of our newest partners for Producers in Paradise this June, from the 19th through the 23rd in Key West for the members of Killing Commercial. And they're going to go down and have a great time educating that crew and just hanging with us for a little bit and see how where the real magic happens inside of our community. But for everybody else that can't be part of that, we're going to let you hear what Rich has to say anyhow, because I think that what BluePond is doing is going to reshape the way we approach things in our industry. So before we get started, Rich, number one, welcome. And number two, why don't you do what everybody does, sort of give your background and how you got to where you're at with BluePond, and then we're going to dive in.
Sure. Well, David, thanks so much. It's great to be here with you and your listeners today. So Rich Stamets here, Chief Commercial Officer at BluePond. I have a long history being in the insurance industry, 35 plus years. I had an opportunity to meet up with one of our co-founders, Pranav Pashrikar, earlier this year, where we both shared a vision of what Gen AI can do for the entire insurance ecosystem, and joined him really in April. So a little quick update, really, since the last time you chatted with Pranav last year. Last year, the organization was still in, I would say, research and development mode, and really training our large language models. Because as an AI company, as you might imagine, large language models being relatively new to the scene, but also are all the rage, that even though they are somewhat trained in the English language, they don't necessarily understand insurance. So what our engineers have really been doing for the last 18, 19 months is really teaching the LLMs exactly what insurance terminology is. So when you spoke to Pranav last year, still research mode, still kind of be under the covers, not really talking too much, but the big splash really started happening in January of this year. And really since then, we have really exploded. We were actually selected as one of the cohorts for BrokerTech Ventures this year, which was fantastic. I think there's only 10 companies that got selected for that. We are at a point now where we have, I would say, 8 customers. That might not sound like a lot, but as a new startup that's only been in the industry now for a couple of months, that's pretty significant. And we've got about 15 different organizations that are actually in a POC with us. So a lot's really been happening. And what's really changed from a product perspective our broker Copilot, which I know that you had spoken to Pranav about last year, is out in the marketplace and it is live today. And that particular product has two components that includes both a policy checking and a quote comparison feature. But in addition, and one thing that I'm not really seeing the competition doing is that we also offer a market insights capability. And what that does, Dave, is really interesting. It's not just doing the actual policy comparison, but it actually monitors the selling behavior of the brokers to give them a quantitative analysis on why they're actually placing their business with certain carriers, whether that is pricing advantages, whether or not that's coverage advantages, et cetera. And we have some other things, but I know we want to get into some more products here down the road. I'll stop with my monologue here for a second.
So here's what I know about insurance agents, man. If you give them an acronym, they're going to take it and run with it. So, VA for virtual assistant is one they know well. API for advanced programming interface. No, they don't even know what it meant, but they're going to throw API around because they know you need to have that in order to integrate with anything. We're hearing a lot about LLM, large language model. Before we even go down the road of what BluePond's doing specifically, why don't you kind of give the 6th grade reading level pitch of what that large language model is? Because look, I know my peer group. I love them. This is no disrespect to anybody, but not all AI is ChatGPT. And, we know what ChatGPT does, and certainly that is a large language model, but I don't know that people really understand the depth that you can get to. So as we build on what BluePond's doing, let's give them the foundation of what is a large language model, number one. And number two, you mentioned that you have engineers and developers that are training it. What does that even look like? I don't even understand, I want to understand how you even go about doing that.
Well, first of all, I'm thankful that you asked me to explain it at a 6th grade level as opposed to anything higher, because that's about as where my understanding actually
I got to keep it where I get it too, man.
Well, to me, it goes beyond this. It's really the latest generative technology that exists out there in the marketplace. And these large language models, LLMs, as you mentioned, have the ability to absorb and understand the English language like we've never seen it before. It's very different than when I first started programming, where you would create a decision tree or an if-then statement. This latest advancement actually has the ability to not only ingest this information, understand it, but then is actually able to actually output and create new output that, unbeknownst to all of us, we haven't actually seen until the last 18, 24 months, at least available commercially. Certainly, LLMs have been around for a while, but we haven't really seen them until ChatGPT made its big splash last year.
Yeah, and I think, it's really important for people to understand that ChatGPT is not Google. I mean, you could use it to ask it questions or to, find things on the internet, but at the end of the day, that's not really where the value is in the language models. And, from my perspective, somebody who has tons of content out on the internet, it's relatively easy for me to train my version of ChatGPT to talk like me, write like me, and to some degree think like me, because I've got literally thousands of pieces of content that it can ingest and learn from. So, I want to caution agents out there, because number one, it's not as simple as paying $20 a month or whatever it is for ChatGPT 4.0. You really kind of have to know what you're doing in order to make it work to your benefit. And as we get into this conversation, I have a feeling that some of the more enterprising producers and agency principals out there are like, well, I can just build this for myself. Okay, Sparky, if you think that's where you're, keep thinking that, but this goes way, way deeper than that. So, from an engineering or development standpoint, what does that look like inside the operation? To me, I feel like to get it as precise as you possibly can, there are probably a lot of mundane days in there just doing repetitive tasks over and over again just to get it right.
No, you're absolutely right, and I've actually have heard brokers say to me, "Oh, I can probably build this myself," and I totally agree with you. I think, okay, that's great. Now anybody can download ChatGPT, Llama, any other large language models, and start asking some questions. But does it really understand insurance, right? So to me, if someone were to ask ChatGPT, describe an umbrella, well, guess what? It's probably going to describe for you that little thing that pops up and keeps you protected from rain. But if you're going to ask it to understand what does an umbrella mean from a contractual perspective and offering excess liability coverage under certain lines of coverage, that's the system's not trained to do that out of the box. And it certainly isn't trained to answer those questions at an enterprise level, right? It's very simple to go in and ask any of the LLMs single point questions and you get a single point response. But to actually use engineers like we have been doing with our LLMs to create prompts for the system to actually understand the nuances of insurance contractual language, that takes a lot. So to answer your other question, what does that actually look like? Our engineers are spending their days, nights, weekends, basically prompting the system so that it understands all the nuances within insurance. And we're not done. This is something that is, you can't just start this process and expect it to be done in a week. This takes months and months and months, especially if you're a company like BluePond, where we are focused on the commercial application, but we also deal with property, general liability, BOPs, all of the lines of coverages, whether they're admitted or not admitted. And quite frankly, even when the system gets involved in some of the E&S management endorsements, that is really where you're going to see some of the magic happen.
So we've given them what a learned language model is or a large language model is. We've talked a little bit about the prompting, teaching, and all of that. Time to get down to brass tacks. I mean, I think we've probably got some people saying, okay, well, what is it that these guys actually do? And I know you touched on it a little bit, but talk about the use case. I mean, you've got 8 clients now, and I agree. You know, the average listener probably thinks, oh, wow, like, great, you have 8 clients, but you had none, 6,
Right.
8 months ago. And you're at a point where you're now ready to start bringing people on. And that's one of the things that I really respect about how you guys have built this product is you're just not going to throw it out there until it's 100% ready to go. And I do know, that there's been plenty of beta testing in the different products that are available right now. So, tell them what you guys do specifically and how agents and brokers have been using you over the course of the last couple of months.
Sure. Well, at the heart of everything that we do, David, our system is called the PNC Copilot. That is really where the large language model resides. And from that, we've actually created modules to answer some of those use cases. And the first one I'm going to talk about is really policy checking and quote comparisons. And for those of you that are listening that may not know what that means, there are almost 1 million people in the United States and more overseas that their sole job is to basically check the accuracy of a quote that comes in from multiple carriers. So, and that process can take anywhere between 20 minutes to over 3 hours, and sometimes even more if we have a large auto schedule or a large property schedule. So we're literally, and I know we're audio, but from a visual perspective, you have CSRs, ASRs that are in the back rooms, literally going from one policy to the next and back and forth, creating their own Excel documents to make sure that they have the right checklist for them. So what we've done is we've actually created a template by line of business that I affectionately refer to as the Goldilocks template, meaning it's not too detailed and it's not too little detailed, so that we give our clients a very solid and I think a very comprehensive analysis of the contract. So that's number one. Number two is we actually offer generative AI as a pass. So platform as a service. It's probably better than calling it a GAS, a Gen AI as a service. But from that particular area, there are actually several modules as well. So we can, and this would be more applicable to, let's say, an MGA or a carrier, whereby we can actually do a submission ingestion, whereby we extract the information and we're agnostic as to how we get it. It doesn't have to be in a particular format. That's another beautiful component of working with a language model. We then analyze that submission, comparing it against the underwriting guidelines of the company, and then actually scoring it for them so that underwriters, when they come in into their desktop, they don't have to necessarily start just going through a pile. All of that underwriting pre-work, and I'm a previous I would say a recovering underwriter from years gone by, that work is mundane. No one really likes that. They really like making intelligent decisions. So all of that mundane checking is actually can be passed off to someone like a BluePond, and we tee that up for the broker to make back up to the underwriter so that their day is more efficient and they can focus on the accounts that their company wants them to focus on.
So I think that there's possible confusion in the marketplace because there's a big difference between policy review and policy check-in. And this is actually one of the things that Pranav and I talked about when we spent some time chatting at InsurTech Connect in Vegas last week. How do you define the difference in those two things?
Well, for us, a quote comparison would be, here's an example. You may get 3 or 4 quotes from Hartford, Travelers, CNA, whomever, and it's required that the ASR actually check that against the application. And our system can actually do that. And we have no limitation as to how many different quotes that we have out there. And I would say that our secret sauce is that we have a very robust policy library, which I'm not necessarily sure if our competitors have that or not. But so, for example, if you were to get a quote from Hartford and they're actually referencing just the policy numbers, you're not actually getting the forms, but you're getting the numbers. Our system that can actually check that policy and do the contractual comparison for you and not have to rely on getting those forms from Hartford. The policy comparison is where you have the expiring policy and you are comparing that to what actually happens, what is actually issued by the carrier in that renewal format.
Got it. How do the carriers feel about it? I mean, is this something that they're looking down on and glad that you're working on this and solving this problem? Are they indifferent to it? Is there any threat to them in any way?
I don't think that I haven't heard any overt threats or any concerns from them. I mean, they're excited about when we talk about underwriting submission ingestion as well as claims ingestion as well, because we can certainly help them as well. So to me, they're looking for Gen AI partners that can help them. I don't think that they see us as a threat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you would be, but you never know with technology. We're in an industry that desperately needs to move forward, and it seems like it's a very serious process for that to happen when it comes to tech. I would argue that in the last 5 years, or the last probably at least the last 10, but maybe even just the last 5, we've seen significant gains in development of technology, but I feel like a lot of the time technology was being developed but never adopted because it wasn't getting bought. There was no buy-in at the agent level. And I don't know what I don't know who to blame for that. I don't know if it's because it was an aging population of agency principle that didn't see where things were headed. I don't know if it's because agents are cheap and they don't want to invest in tech. I mean, I'm on the record multiple times of saying technology is a team member in your agency. You have to look at it as a team member and not an expense. You're going to get a return on the investment that you spend on technology, unlike any other bill that you have. But I find that agents a lot of times look at something and the first thing they see is, oh, that's $500 a month. Forget it. That's way too expensive. Meanwhile, they're not paying attention to the fact that it's doing the work of 2 bodies, and how much are you paying for those 2 people to do that same process? You have to think through those things. I think the other thing is people get scared by it, man. I mean, ChatGPT specifically, I'll use it as an example only because it's the one most people widely know. But I mean, there's still hallucinations with it and other things where you might get a completely, like to your point, if you're asking a question about an umbrella, you're probably going to get the Travelers logo or something that it talks, to repel rain.
Right.
I don't know that that's a model problem as much as it is you didn't ask the question the right way. But I mean, that goes back to, oh, now I have to learn how to talk in the language so this thing understands. It all boils down to this. We have to learn in our industry, any industry, sometimes you got to slow down to speed up. We want to try to get from point A to point B so quickly that we don't realize sometimes it's okay to like build the road there so that you're always going to be able to get there the most efficiently instead of trying to go the long way every time because you don't want to slow down to build the platform that you need.
That's right.
I also think that because of that, you're talking about a pretty fundamental part of the agency life. Policy
Agreed.
check-in, policy review, looking to see how a quote compares to the expiring policy, or even looking to see how an issued policy compares to the quote to make sure there's no discrepancies. That has been a very deliberate and manual process for a long, long time. And
Agreed.
I think that there's probably a lack of comfort from an agency to allow machine learning to do that for them, because Betty Sue has done that for 20 years and she's the absolute best. There's no way this computer is going to do it as good as Betty Sue. Maybe you still need Betty Sue to be involved. Maybe she needs to do the final review, the final check. But if you can flatten that curve and give Betty Sue more time to do the things that she really likes to do, because she hasn't said anything to you, Mr. Agency Principal, but she hates policy check-in and policy review. There are days she calls in sick when she knows that she's going to have to do that, and she doesn't come to work as a result. So you may actually be helping the culture of your agency by letting her have less hands-on in the entire process, but sign off on the ultimate process. And the other thing is, maybe Betty Sue's also really good at cross-selling. Well, if you give her more time on revenue-bearing activities when she's servicing the book, that's going to help. And the other thing is, depending on the use case for BluePond, you may actually give her a cheat sheet on where she needs to go for cross-selling, because it may find that there are gaps or things missing that she needs to remedy, which ultimately turns into more revenue for the agency.
Yeah, that is right. And you said so many great things right there. There's so much to unpack. Let's go way back to the adoption component, right, of generative AI. I'll cut to the chase. Gen AI is not going away. And I can give people several examples, right? I'm old enough to remember pre-internet days, right? And this newfangled technology came along. And then it was like, oh, companies are having websites, and now everybody has a website, right? The idea used to be, oh, it's an expense, I don't necessarily want to have that. If you're not on the web, you don't have a business. And then you can even talk insurance things like EPL coverage. Right, EPL was long to adopt. Cyber was long to adopt, but all those coverages, all those things I just talked about, they're in our very daily lives, and that is absolutely going to be the same thing with generative AI. So, if for anyone that is thinking that this is a phase, it is not. The technology is too good, it's too smart, and it does everything that you suggested, David. The idea of allowing and enhancing the work of your team. That you should absolutely be looking to generative AI, because of the examples I expressed earlier. That is real, and it's coming. It is actually going to enhance individuals' work life, in the sense of, to your point, they will no longer have to spend time on some of the mundane. They will have an opportunity to spend more time on revenue generating processes, whether that is really explaining the coverages more clearly to their client, educating their consumers as to what it is they're buying, and even the output from BluePond AI. Even though it's an Excel format that is going back to the ASR CSR, that can be utilized by them as a side-by-side comparison that easily does the work for them. They don't have to compile that themselves. So you're right. To me, this is not going away. The adoption it's all over the place, just as I expected it. Some people look at us and think, oh, this isn't going to work. And then there's other clients, and we just had one the other day where we did one single demonstration for a smaller broker who signed up with us by the end of our very first demonstration, because he gets it. So I think if you're a student of insurance, the topic of generative AI has to be one of the biggest things that you're looking at, because it will change your business. And if you're not paying attention to it, you're going to be like that pizza shop that doesn't have an app, or they don't have a website,
or even delivery for that matter. I mean, it's that crucial, right? And I mean,
That's right.
I think it really also levels the playing field. You said something that I think is really important for everybody to hear, and that was that a small agency signed up, before the end of the first demo. And I have so many friends that are trying to figure out how to run lean because they don't necessarily. It's a different animal to be an agency principal than it is to be a producer. I think we can all agree on that. I know both sides of the fence now. I prefer the production side of the fence because that's the more fun with less responsibility. And so I think that a lot of the times when a producer decides they can do it better and they can start an agency, that they just think they can sell their way out of all of the issues, and eventually I'll hire this account manager, I'll hire another producer or whatever else. It doesn't always work that way, unfortunately. And so, I can remember back 8 years ago when I launched Florida Risk and think about what are the things that really took up my time, or if I didn't do them the right way, what are the things that should have taken up my time that I maybe ignored in the spirit of going out and producing more, that could leave everything I'm trying to build as an asset wide open for somebody to come in and sue me on an E&O claim or whatever else. And I hear about tools like this. I hear about people who are effectively leveraging virtual assistants for things outside of what we would normally expect in the industry. And it shows me that if you're a producer and that's really what you want to do, and you don't want to have the responsibility of growing a team and dealing with all of the other stuff that goes with it, you could probably grow a really good, profitable 1-person, 2-person agency and never look back. And I'm not talking about, when I say a really good, I'm not talking about 200,000 in revenue. You could have a multi-million-dollar agency with a very, very small human service platform as all of this continues to evolve. Like you, I watched the internet get built, man. I mean, it was non-existent when we went to college. We maybe had email, maybe was just starting to come around, but that's back in the days when the Netscape and the Prodigy and the AOL discs were all coming in the mail, and everybody was trying to figure out where this thing was going. And I'm a big fan of the elderly. I know that a lot of people get frustrated when an old lady is driving slow in front of you in traffic, or you're trying to get down the aisle at the grocery store. I tend to give them more grace, and really I enjoy conversations with people that are a lot older than me. And unfortunately, she passed away a couple of years ago, but my great grandmother is one of those people. I mean, just to sit and listen to this story she had from her lifetime. She was 90 some years old when she passed away, born, went through the Great Depression. And you think about, holy cow, like how much has she seen in her lifetime? It's just like, we like so many things that we take for granted today are like that. But then I look back at my own life, and as we continue to push the envelope and advance, multiple more things have been invented and developed and refined during my lifetime. And literally every time that I have done any public speaking around this topic in the course of the last 6 months to a year, the statement I make every time is this. And I'm saying this intentionally because if you're listening to this, you need to pay attention. I'm 100% right. I don't think anybody's going to convince me otherwise, but I feel like ChatGPT specifically and the large language model things that we're seeing become mainstream are the single greatest and most impactful development in technology since the internet came out itself. I think I can comfortably say that right now.
I 100% agree with you. I happened to be on a panel 2 weeks ago talking about generative AI, and I made a very similar analogy. I kind of joked about being pre-internet, et cetera. And I told even some of the younger folks who are in the audience, I said, look, you might be in your 20s, but mark this time, this year, in your calendars, because you're going to be telling your children and your grandchildren that you lived in the world that was before generative AI. I totally agree with you. This is knowing as little or as much as I do, this is probably one of the most impactful things I've seen that's going to change our lives for the good, or for certainly for the good. And to your point about some of the older folks, what I find is interesting is that if you are a student of this business and you're a student of what's going on around you, you are paying attention. You are paying attention to what's going on. And if I could go back just for a quick second, because I think too, David, that's important that people do get a little afraid of this technology, and to lure is probably the wrong word, but to kind of coach someone into the water is fine and kind of experiencing generative AI. If I could just go back just for a quick second to say, one of the things that we try to do here at BluePond and separating ourselves is that we give our clients a free trial. Whether that's, I don't necessarily want to say what that is. We'll have a one-on-one conversation, but we want to make sure that we can actually show the information that a broker has back to them. Because I can certainly demonstrate to them our stock or our stock information, but until they actually see their account and how they would have actually have done the comparison, that's really when the light bulb goes off. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for brokers with us. We're not charging them out of the gate. We do give them a free trial.
I think the other thing is, we laugh about it a little bit that the internet didn't exist, but I'll be honest with you, man, I really feel like having grown up and watching how all of that has developed, whether it be just communications or how e-commerce has shifted the economy online and really kind of done a number on traditional bricks and mortar. If you look at Kmart and Sears and some of these others,
Sure.
I think that because we have grown up in the time that we have, if we've paid any attention at all, it makes it a whole lot easier to pinpoint trends that are getting ready to happen based on what we've already seen happen, which is one of the reasons why I'm all in on this and I believe it wholeheartedly. It was interesting to me. I read Seth Godin's book, I think it's Permission Marketing or Permission-Based Marketing, whatever it was. He wrote it back around 2000. I didn't read it until like 2018 or 2019. It's a book that's got evergreen content. It'll stand the test of time. But as I read through that book, what amazed me was how accurately he predicted where Amazon would be today, 20 years almost before it ever even happened. And I feel with a lot of the technology that we see coming in, that's something that I pay a lot of attention to, because I can see not just, hey, here's where this thing is today, but here are the possibilities of where else it can go. And because of the podcast, because I do speak publicly, there are a lot of InsurTech inventors and founders that will reach out specifically on commercial-based products to get feedback and an opinion, because I'm vocal about things and, I don't have a problem giving direct feedback and helping them get better. And even yesterday, I was on a call with a guy that's working on a pretty cool piece of technology for InsurTech. And as he was talking, I'm like, I don't know if you've thought about this in your roadmap or not, but if you knew this person and this person has this company, this person has this company, and if the three of you were able to get together and figure out a way to integrate, you could literally solve the problem you're trying to solve a piece of in its entirety with no human interaction whatsoever. I wouldn't have been able to think that way if I wouldn't have seen how we've taken things and changed the way we do business just because of the time frame that we grew up in.
I think what we're going to continue to see is companies collaborating with each other to provide a more holistic solution for our clients. You're absolutely right. And two great examples coming out of ITC Vegas 2 weeks ago, and then we just got back from Target Markets this week, where we had an opportunity to connect with vendors that I had never met before, and old friends where I've worked with other companies that have now started their own organizations. There's a lot of attitude whereby there's a very big piece of the pie that we can all go get. The idea is that there's companies that are willing to work together that I think maybe 20 years ago they wouldn't necessarily do that. But to your point, this is like putting together Lego building blocks, right? We have a great Lego building block in our generative AI pass system. Other folks may be still using generative AI, but they're focused in another problem they're trying to solve. So the idea of these organizations coming together and formulating a more comprehensive solution for the insurance client, I think you're going to continue to see that happen. It's amazing.
You know, I do a decent amount of work with Department of Defense contractors, and I see that a lot with the people that I work with and even their peers in that segment. And specifically, it's interesting to me because you're competitors, but you're also collaborators at the exact same time. If the government comes out and says, you know, we need a flight simulator and training program built for this specific aircraft, and we're putting this out to bid so that, you know, whoever wins gets the contract as a prime. Let's just say there's 10 competing companies that all put their RFP in to get, you know, try and win that contract. Only one of them is going to win it. But what happens is whoever does turns around and hires the other 9 so that they can help them build the product the way that it needs to be built. And I think that there's a lot of intelligence there, because if you know that the product has to be put together and assembled, you know, Legos is a great example. If you're going to build with Legos, you're going to use different shapes and sizes, and each one has its own unique purpose that if you didn't use it the way that it's supposed to be used, the end project is not going to turn out the way that it's supposed to turn out. This is very similar. And, you know, I see it in, you know, pharma and med devices. If you look at what's happened with that part of our economy, a lot of the big pharma companies, you know, aren't investing as much in their own R&D departments because they figured out it's better to let a chemist or a drug maker, you know, come out with, you know, whatever their product is going to be, let them take all the lumps on the clinical trials and everything else, and then buy them and then make it part of your banner. Because the reality of it is, think about this. How many novel drugs is one person ever going to invent in their life? One, maybe 2,
Right.
if they're, you know, completely, you know, on another planet. But you're not going to hire a team of people to do R&D that are going to constantly churn out these new ideas. You have to cast a much wider net and let these people take the VC money and do all of the R&D on their nickel. And then when you're ready, they're ready to go to market with their product or close to it. You're going to pay more, but probably pay less in the long run. I don't think that what we're seeing with InsurTech is any different. If you have people that are experts and really good at one piece of it, let them do that and then work with other people to build a really cool finished product. And there may be people who are an expert at a very specific piece of what you're building, and that same piece applies to 2 or 3 other projects. If this person has it figured out, why recreate the wheel, man? Figure out a way to work together and build the best product possible, and we all win as a result of that.
I can give you what I think is a pretty solid example. So one of our potential clients happens to be a retail broker. Basically approached me and a good friend who happened to owns his own agency. I'm sorry, policy administration system, and wants us to combine our forces to give him a more comprehensive product. But even within BluePond, you know, we are leveraging other InsurTechs as well. For example, if we're let's talk about like the claims ingestion and triage, or the underwriting submission and triage. You know, when we extract that data out of the application, there may be pieces of information missing from an app. We are actually leveraging other InsurTechs to supplement that information to make that submission higher quality, so that the broker doesn't have to decline it. We're leveraging additional data. We supplement it, and it's accurate. And that gives the producer, the carrier, a much better product overall. So I think that collaboration is going to continue because, again, I think I don't want to sound too cliche here, but we can actually be stronger together when leveraging the benefits and the strengths of each other's companies.
Yeah, and I think, you know, some of that again probably is a generational difference, you know, just being completely transparent, man. I mean,
Yep.
I can't speak for what my mom and dad's generation's like, other than my experience with my own parents, relatives, friends, parents that grew up at that time. But I can speak fairly authoritatively about mine. And I think even is Gen X, which I think is probably where I'm classified. I don't know the exact date brackets on that, but I'm going to identify as Gen X today. Um, you know, I look at that and it was always a me versus you mentality. If I win, you have to lose. And I don't see that from the generation and even two generations behind, because unfortunately I'm old enough now that I could be a grandfather. Thankfully I'm not yet. That would have a whole other set of complications, but
It's a whole other podcast.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, we would. I don't know how that would go, but when I look at how my sons operate, and even my daughter who's much younger, the me versus you is gone, and maybe part of that's because I grew up playing sports too. But I don't think so, man. I don't think that's the way it is. I think that, we were kind of every man for himself. I'm going to go do my thing and figure this out or whatever. And I don't think that that works in tech at all. I think that you have to be able to collaborate. I mean, I wonder if Apple and IBM and all of them were more collaborative as they were developing product, where would we really be today instead of each one of them operating in their own silo?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I've had to sort of like change my view of the world as well. I'm a former AIG guy, where you had AIG and you had Lexington, same ownership, actually used to compete against each other. So imagine that, where today it's completely the opposite. It really is finding the right partners that can help basically complement you and perhaps your blind spots or your weak points, to make you a stronger output for the benefit of your client. Because and I honestly think, David, that if you don't do that and you have that old school mentality, you're not going to survive, because you can't be everything to all people. You really do need to collaborate with others that can help offer a better product to your consumers.
Yeah, and I even see it with producers, like, people that you would normally think you're competing with. I've got relationships even with agents locally that technically, yeah, we could very well compete on the exact same account, but we have a good enough relationship and I'm comfortable enough in that relationship that I can share things that I'm working on and ask them what their thoughts are. What am I missing here? How would you approach this differently than me? And it makes life a whole lot easier when you're not, rowing the boat by yourself. The other thing too is there's a lot of people out there still that aren't willing to be collaborative, and they're the ones that are going to lose in all of this. There's plenty of business to go around,
Yeah.
so you might as well figure out how to work with people that can help you get to where you want to be faster than living in complete isolation and taking the longer way to get there. Like, my goal is to retire as fast as I can, man. I don't care how I get there. I just want to retire as fast as I can, live a comfortable life, have enough of
Sure.
my health left to spend time with my family, do the traveling I want, invest in nonprofits and charitable organizations that I can use my skill set in some capacity to help other people and stay sharp. But my goal is not to be a producer or an agency principal forever. Like, I don't want to do that. So now that I know what my goal is, what's the easiest way for me to get there the quickest and have the best return on the investment of my time and effort?
100%. And I will tell you, to that point, those producers, those carriers that have that collaborative mindset, I think are actually going to benefit the end consumer, those that actually ingest and are actually our policyholders. But a quick example, again, we're still a relatively young organization, but some of the clients that we have already, we're actually starting to refer us to their other, honestly, their competitors. There's obviously the fun phrase, frenemies. But they have no problem in sharing this technology with those to help them out, because they honestly do believe that they have a reputation to withhold. They want to maintain a friendship with some similar agencies out there in the marketplace, and referring someone like a BluePond AI is certainly not going to hurt their business. It's actually going to help their consumer at the end of the day.
100%. We're coming up on an hour, man. What have we missed?
The only thing that I would say, David, is I think that the market is actually crazy for brokers today, in a very different way. We've all kind of ridden through the hard market, the soft market. And I actually see today where you have pockets of softening and pockets of hardening, which is going to make those brokers' jobs even more difficult. So, let's take property, for example, whereby in the past, you may have had like one or two carriers. Now you might have to get up to five, or we have clients that are, we have carriers that are pulling out of states for various reasons, making the brokers having to remarket that business even more frequently than they have in the past. So just generative tools like BluePond AI, Broker Copilot certainly help them. We would love to participate. And as I mentioned, we offer some free trials, and it's an easy way to find us with our website right here.
Listen, people, we've beat it to death. This is not going away. I highly encourage you, if nothing else, if you I feel like I'm giving an altar call here in church. If you feel so led, no, but seriously, if we've piqued your interest enough that you want to learn a little bit more, go to their website and check it out. And I would even encourage you to do a free trial with them just to see what the product looks like and how quickly it's turned around, and then visualize what you would be able to do in your agency if you were able to take this much time and squeeze it into this much time so that you could focus on the things that are going to enhance your revenue and your overall profitability. And I got to tell you, I made a comment before, and you didn't know this, but as I look at my screens while we're recording, I'd snapped a screenshot and did a LinkedIn post that we were recording the podcast, and I tagged you. And one of the comments I said was, I want to be one of the agents that's at the forefront of this technology so that I can use it and give my feedback for its use case so that I can help shape how that product is developed. I don't want to wait until a bunch of other people who may not have the same vision or alignment with what I see giving the feedback, and then it's too late for me. So, don't let them fool you. They have 8 clients because they only want 8 clients, but they're ready for more now. They took the time and built the foundation. They've gone through the beta testing. I highly encourage you to go check out bluepond.ai and look, just go down the rabbit hole and then let me know. Shoot me an email, shoot me a direct message. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know what you think is cool, what you've learned, any of that. But look, you can wait till tomorrow, but you're going to be one day behind everybody who clicked today. And we all know the old Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. Don't wait. We already know how that works out. Go check them out. Rich, thank you so much for being on today. I appreciate it. Great conversation. Really excited to see what you guys are doing. Glad to know that you're part of what we're doing with Producers in Paradise, and I know that whole family is going to be pumped to get to meet you guys and hear more about what's going on in Key West next summer. So thanks again for your time, and really appreciate you joining me today.
Thanks, David. Great to be with you.